so it's going to take me a second or two longer to get the ball rolling. But thank you so much for joining us. As I said, we are actually joining you from the road right now today. A lot of the team are actually here at VRMA in Phoenix, hence why we are a slightly different format, slightly different backgrounds, but we still have lots of juicy updates to bring you across the team. Including updates from the road, the events we're at, and also plenty of product updates as well. So I'm going to get going now and give you a few housekeeping notes as always. So as always, thank you so much for joining us today's session. We are recording, we are live streaming the session. So if you get disconnected at any point, you can go ahead and go over to our YouTube page and catch up on the updates there as well. As always, we're going to start off with some updates from ourselves, and then we'll move into audience Q&A. Please, if you have any questions throughout the session, you can use the Q&A functionality at the bottom. That's a lot easier than using the chat. It helps us keep track of all the questions that are being asked. And also, if you'd like to come on stage towards the end, there is a react button at the bottom, and there's a raise hand button in there. That lets us know that you're interested in coming on stage to ask a question. So before we get started with some of those product updates, as I mentioned, we are on the road at the moment. So we kind of want to share some updates from our travels across North America at the moment. So a bunch of us have been going to a few conferences and just kicking off with where we are currently today, a bunch of the team. So I think we actually have 9 of us here at VRBO in Phoenix. So if you are already in Phoenix, if you're attending the event, please do stop by booth 226. We've already had a bunch of people join us and say hello, from existing customers to prospects. We're obviously always happy to chat to folks. It's a great event, lots of different vendors here with us. So yeah, come along and say hello if you are at that event. We will be here for the rest of today. Today there's a closing party. We've been here since, I think, Sunday. I'm losing track of all the days, but it's a really good event looking at vacation rental managers across the industry. Really kind of one of the biggest events there is in the industry, actually. Also, though, last week we were in Cancun. A bunch of us were there for the Bigger Pockets conference. We're really, trying to position ourselves as the short-term rental option in the Bigger Pockets forum. Bigger Pockets is kind of an investor forum for people looking at real estate investing across different formats. Really, we were there to be the option for short-term rentals. And we had lots of interesting conversations with folks there. So there's definitely a bunch of people doing long-term rentals, considering short-term rentals for some of the tax benefits of that. And so definitely we had plenty of great conversations there. Real mix of an audience in terms of who was attending and what they were doing with real estate investing. But there's definitely a lot of interest in more people getting into short-term rental and looking for a solution like ours to make it a lot easier to manage the process. Obviously, going from long-term rental to short-term rental can be a little daunting because it sounds like a lot more work. But obviously, with a solution like ours, it makes it a lot easier. And then in between Cancun and Phoenix, we were hopping about all over the place. We had our Host and Toast Roadshow. Myself, Derek, and Andrew managed to go to all of those events, except for Orlando. Unfortunately, we had to cancel that event due to Hurricane Milton at short notice. So hopefully hosts there weren't too badly affected. But these were some fantastic events to meet some customers live and in person. And I think Andrew can share a few updates from the hosts that we met on the road.
Yeah, I think we were really touched by all the effort people made to get there. Like that was great. We had people that flew in from Cleveland to Atlanta. We had people that drove up 2 hours from San Antonio to Austin that had just joined Hospitable 2 months prior. So yeah, that really felt for us. This is always energy giving. I think to spend time with hosts in real life to learn from you. I think we heard about all kinds of different business models that you guys are trying. Each kind of region was different. Like obviously in California we had a lot of conversations about compliance, about maybe how investing, I think, in new property in California is so difficult. So there's a lot of people on the arbitrage model. So it was great for us just to get really a deep level understanding. So we normally went, I think, over time on all of these. I think some of them we were talking straight 5.5 hours. But really it was like energy giving, like I said. So thank you for everyone that made it out. If we ever do this again, I highly recommend it. It's great to have FaceTime with you guys in a more interactive way than we're able to do on the town hall. But yeah, great fun. And connectivity.
Yeah,
Sam,
hey
should I
everyone.
keep going or did you want to steal
No,
this?
no, it just took me a little while
Okay.
just to unmute myself and
Oh,
someone put me on.
I
I'm
make your
sorry.
slides and then you take over. All right, go ahead.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. Okay, so as we kind of mentioned on the last town hall, Andrew and I were attending Booking.com's travel tech events, which is a connectivity partner event. It was a really good event. We got to speak with a lot of the connectivity leadership team. Whilst we were there, we took part in some workshops with a multitude of different kind of teams. Tech and UI and kind of everything in between. And it was pretty good. We got to kind of leave our mark in helping shape the future of connectivity with Booking.com. They were really interested in our input. You might have seen Andrew talking about this on our social media. We heard some kind of really interesting nuggets whilst we were there. I think a couple of the biggest things that stood out to us and how that will impact our hosts, are their current focus areas. So they talked about focusing pretty broadly, but with intent on US properties, and as well as the what they're calling the family segment of guests, which is obviously great for short-term rentals. And for Booking.com, that what they call homes, those kind of whole properties, those ones we know and love in short-term rentals, they currently account for 1/3 of all bookings on Booking.com. So that's pretty good. Some really interesting information there. So just touching on what's on the slide here, request to book, which operates more like an inquiry. So that's 24 hours for the host to accept, and then 24 hours for the guest to confirm. Right now, there's no messaging. That should be being fixed by Booking.com this quarter, and then they're looking to release a true request to book product, what they're calling kind of 2.0. Late 2025, maybe early 2026, depending on how quickly they can get that out. But the good news on that front for this kind of first iteration, this V1, Harkin's been hard at work on the engineering team, on the connectivity team, I guess. And we should have this V1 rolling out to our host before the next town hall. And then once we get that fixed for messaging, we'll roll that out as well and we'll upgrade that. So yeah, hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll have this inquiry feature rolled out. The next slide, thank you. So we also kind of discussed their new modular content API. So that's going to allow us to progressively roll out better listing management features for Booking.com. So what we're aiming for is a zero setup. So if you've already got an Airbnb listing connected to us, we should be able to distribute that listing to Booking.com with zero setup, and then we can automate that distribution moving forward as well. Whilst we're at travel tech events, I had a really interesting discussion with a few people there, and I was asking some questions about the conversion rates for based around the number of rate plans on Booking.com. And so rate plans are those individual rows. You can kind of see this in the slide here. When you're looking at a property on Booking.com or a listing on Booking.com, you'll see that they tend to have these individual rows, and those are rate plans, and they all have their own individual price as well. And so you can offer cheaper rates for non-refundable plans and things like that, and you can configure them. But one of the kind of really interesting things there is for homes on Booking.com, somewhere between 2 and 4 rate plans against an individual listing is a sweet spot for conversion rates. So what we can do from that, knowing that information and kind of digging into that a bit further, we can help you optimize those rate plans for peak success. And then after that, there's nothing left to do but profit. It's that simple, hopefully. On Agoda, so no big changes to report just yet. We're still in that process of being certified. We've been certified for pricing availability, so things to do with calendar operations, and now we're working on certification for messaging. So that's still with them. We're doing as much as we can from our side to keep pushing that forward and get that rolled out as soon as possible. And for our initial integration, that's going to be the ability to import your existing listings from Agoda, and then you'll have that existing kind of feature parity that we have with the other OTAs as well. Once that's rolled out, once we've got that certification and we've rolled that out, we can then start looking at additional features for Agoda, like listing management, distribution, similar to what we were just kind of talking about there with Booking.com. That's everything from my side. I'll hand you over to Andrew.
Cool. Yeah, we did talk to some hosts at the Host and Toast event that were making 30% of their bookings from Booking.com, which I think is a different story than we've heard in the past. So we are starting to see that their focus, I think, on the US market. Again, performance may vary, but for some hosts, it's already making a big impact. So I think if we can get the setup time down from 0, and it's not there yet, then it's kind of becomes almost a no-brainer for our host to get better distribution. So that's exciting. And we did meet with a full Booking.com team again yesterday, and I think they're going to try and get us into that messaging pilot for request to book. So hopefully we can be one of the kind of charter customers to build out that functionality, which would be great. But back to Airbnb. So yeah, I think more people are getting the message now. We're still in the process of kind of contacting everyone that's in these different segments, and how this change will differ depending on how you use Airbnb. We've talked about this a lot in previous town halls. I'm not going to go into too much detail now, other than what's changed and what's available now. So what is happening is obviously we are upgrading how we connect to Airbnb. Airbnb has asked us to do that. So they want to have a single source of truth. So they are requiring that, which means we need to exclusively connect to your listings now to be able to manage your pricing and availability. So that's the big change that's happening. We had a lot of conversations about this on Host and Toast, and happy to do that again in the Q&A. Yeah, please look at maybe previous town halls if you want to go into detail. We're still in the process of offering self-serve upgrade for a lot of our customers. This has been fully communicated to anyone that has listings that have no co-host. So for this is like the happy path, the easy upgrade option. You have an upgrade button on your connected accounts page. You should have received an email from us going through all of the different things that change, possible impacts, etc. So those hosts you've heard from us, you can upgrade on your own time. If you do not upgrade on your own time, you can also wait for us to migrate. You don't have to take any action. We will migrate your connection to this, what's called the property management software scope, the PMS scope connection at the end of October. The communication that's rolling out currently is for hosts that are already connected to another PMS. So if you're using other software that's already in that connection or claiming of your Airbnb listings, we will not be able to migrate you. So we've started to share that communication with the hosts that are in that bucket, and you will be losing the ability for Hospitable to manage your pricing and availability. If you're using other software, we kind of assume that you're already doing that, right? You're already managing that pricing and availability on other software. But if that's not something that you want to happen, if you want to use Hospitable's calendar, you do have a path to do that, which would involve disconnecting that other software. If you're not using it anymore, if you prefer to use Hospitable, you have a bit of time now to make that change. Once you disconnect that other software, you can go into Hospitable and go through that same self-serve upgrade flow. The people that we are not contacting and communicating to upgrade on their own, although we will reach out with communication very soon, is anyone that has co-hosted listings, because we can do this more seamlessly and with less friction effort than you can on your own. We don't want you to have to reach out to all of your co-hosts and get them to connect by Airbnb again. We can do a migration for you. So we don't expect to have a self-serve path there. And yeah, anything we didn't cover here? Yeah, I think we kind of covered all these points here. Again, the biggest, I think, impact that's come up in previous town halls is on anyone that is going to have their service fee configuration change. And we're working to be able to update markup rates on your behalf to make sure that if you do have your Airbnb service rates change because of this exclusive software connection, we're going to make sure that that doesn't impact your payout, and we go ahead and update those markup rates on your behalf. But keep looking out for emails from us. We're just working through each segment and trying to have a personalized communication for how this will impact you. And VRBO, Sam, are you back for this? Or no, this is I think Derek actually. Derek, are you there?
I think Derek,
Great.
obviously, we've got to jump in on this one.
That was actually me get that, and obviously just reasserting that Price Labs will be on Wheelhouse, actually not property management software, and you can continue using them, connect them over to Hospitable. And actually, we're very excited because Price Lab has recently increased the support on Hospitable's API, so that's better for everyone. Yeah, I wanted to share a bit of an update, and indeed Derek prompted that, but I'm taking over and taking all the credit. Derek, as you can see, we can chat with Derek right now at our booth on the floor of VRMA in Phoenix. So you can come over and pass by. I think that would be fantastic. For me, what I wanted to share, is a bit more. What we wanted to share is a bit more information around VRBO. Because they sent an email basically the past few days informing their host that there is now going to be a requirement to share critical information. That means access instructions in particular, but also anything that may be, for example, a broken appliance or anything that may have come up that may affect negatively the stay and the experience. That information needs to be shared 72 hours in advance. So congratulations, you're already in the right audience. If you are familiar with Hospitable, you already know that this is essential, and we actually are helping you set that up. Now, the guideline is basically, if you're going to be communicating something to your guests, you need to make sure that it includes all the critical information or the access instructions 72 hours before the check-in. It doesn't have to be necessarily the information. It can be just when and how they will receive the information. So really setting the expectations. Case in point, you don't need to share your access code to a smart lock 72 hours before. That would be obviously triggering a lot of very vehement and justified reaction. You just need to say, as part of your messaging rules, starting from that date, but you can obviously start that right now, that you will communicate the access code on the day of the check-in, certain hours before the check-in, not before. The thing is, what's important is obviously setting expectations correctly for the guest so that they don't have to inquire to VRBO support on why they don't have any information to be able to prepare their stay and the check-in process. So there is a lot going on. There is also something else that probably has been kept on the side, which is basically the fact that you now also need to reply in a timely fashion to critical questions that occur before and during the stay, with a particularly ambitious or normal, I don't know how to position myself on that, but really on the check-in day and during the stay, you're going to need to answer, you're going to be expected to answer critical questions within an hour between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Nobody is saying basically what's happening outside of those hours. Hopefully that means you need to answer relatively quickly from that point on. I think those kind of timelines are pretty much what's common in practice of host. What's important as well is it's not just a response time factor. It's very much bringing a resolution to the issue. So an out of office message saying you were replying outside of hours, I will reply to you later, do not count as a response. You need to bring a resolution to the issue escalated by the guest. Those are really about critical questions, I think, that prevent the guest fundamentally from accessing the property and enjoying their stay. It's not really about, what's the closest groceries shop, supermarket. So what happens next? Obviously, those are great to have rules, to explain principles. If it's not enforced, then basically that remains a guideline. Apparently, there is something in the new policy, and we share the link to that later, that VRBO will be stepping in and work to solve the issue so they can gain access to the property. That seems a bit murky on what that actually means. Obviously, you appreciate there is a high risk that the VRBO will use that complaint, cancel the booking, refund the guest, relocate the guest, find another property for them, but they also have been working on that partner-initiated cancellation fee policy a few months ago, and that basically falls within the scope of a violation of not sharing critical information within those 72 hours windows. So there will be a penalty imposed if you're not communicating critical check-in access instruction and critical information. And that penalty fee varies from $50, that's a minimum, to 50% of the reservation amount. Do note that's the penalty, that's the money that you lose, on top of which, of course, you have no revenue because the reservation has been also canceled at the last minute. Are they going to enforce? They're not going to look, I believe. I don't think they're going to look at messages and check whether you have shared the information, that critical information 72 hours prior to the check-in. That will basically be obviously a way to justify a partner-initiated cancellation and a penalty fee if you basically didn't do this. So there are some things that you can do obviously on your side. First thing, review your messaging rules. January is coming tomorrow, and that is always good practice to do that. Make sure that you share access instructions and critical information 3 days before check-in. Sometimes it may be you may have information to share that may not be automated, that may not need to be automated. So make sure you can also personalize your messages to say, for example, dishwasher is broken, there's going to be another thing for someone fixing this, because that would be qualified as a critical information, I believe. And set expectation if you're not sharing information right now, share when and what and when going to be shared. So for example, the access code to a smart lock, you can share that closer to the check-in date for safety reasons, but you need to say within 72 hours from the check-in time that day, you will share that information at that point in time. Second point, stick to on-platform communication. So critical information, access instruction need to be shared on VRBO. You can imagine that a guest can easily play against the fact that you will share that instruction over by email or by text messages. The VRBO support team will not have access to that. And there may be a far longer conversation with support on the basis of justifying whether you did or you did not communicate that if you go outside of the on-platform communication. And the third point I wanted to share, which is a bit more optimistic, but we just chatted a bit about that with Nikita just prior. So import your access instructions to the Knowledge Hub. They are already part of your guidebook. What I want to emphasize is just basically import that within the Knowledge Hub so it can be helpful for now to create a faster response with the Suggest with AI tool, which is having tremendous success. But more importantly, that means we'll be able to use that information down the line for something closer to auto responses and making sure, so auto resolution of the issues, especially so closer to the deadline of January 2025. So that's basically a bit perspective, but it can already help you generate a reply faster within the hour timeline that VRBO is providing. And on that, talking about AI, Nikita has something more to share or reshare for people who did not attend last week on Upsells. And aren't you excited about having Sprint on messaging for VRBO, critical information? Would be a nice one.
Yeah, so less about AI and more about Upsells. Yeah, hello everyone. Last week we did unveil Upsells as a new feature / product within Hospitable. And for those of you attending last town hall, most of this will be a recap. This is going to be new information to those who weren't there last time. So hopefully this brings some good news and interest to those of you who didn't attend. So Upsells. Guests do want to enhance their stays when they're staying at your property, whether that's early check-in, late check-out, or, for example, flowers at the property on arrival, some champagne bottle, maybe rental equipment, something like that. So there's obviously revenue potential for you as a host. And there are platforms out there that provide a way for guests to buy these sorts of upsells. We wanted to do something different, which is the ability to integrate this deeply within the Hospitable ecosystem directly. And I'll talk about what that means. And we wanted to create something that doesn't require the use of additional software on your side. So you could have everything within Hospitable itself natively. So what does that look like? Upsells in Hospitable will live within the guest experience section of the application. And apart from just sort of general stats, which we will kind of discover and improve later, you'll be able to set up the products that you want to sell as upsells, as add-ons to the guests directly within the application. And for each of those, you will be able to have a pretty familiar configuration interface. It kind of looks similar to messaging rules in that you can have some configuration, some setup, disabling, enabling the things that you care about, setting prices for different variations, and scoping it to different platforms, hosts, and properties, because you might want to have different upsells for different property combinations. Now, what will this result in? You will be able to offer links to your guests that lead to a guest portal. Don't pay too much attention to the design here. It's still kind of in progress, but just to give you an idea, in the guest portal, you'll be able to give your guests the ability to just on their own self-serve choose which products from your product catalog they want to purchase for that stay. They select it, they check out, they pay, and that's it. Now, here comes the deep integration part that other software cannot really match when doing this directly within Hospitable. For early check-in and late checkout scenarios, those upsells are the ones that we're starting with initially. What's going to happen is we will allow you to make automatic timing adjustments to schedule messages, team messages, tasks, and smart lock code unlocks based on the timing options purchased after the purchase confirmation comes through by the guest. So that means that if a guest buys 3-hour early check-in, everything in the app in Hospitable should reflect that. Whatever timing constraints you've set to schedule messages, they should now honor that new timing. Same for smart lock codes, tasks, and so on. You'll have that clearly reflected in the app, and it will just sort of just work magically. Next. Last time I gave a demo, we don't really have much time for that this time around because there's already quite a lot of content before this and after this section. So just as a summary, product catalog for upsells that lives within guest experience. Guests initially will be able to buy upsells ad hoc after a booking, but we will eventually, well, fairly soon, build this directly into the direct booking flow itself, meaning that when a guest is checking out in a direct booking, they will have an additional section where they can just purchase a upsell on the spot, so that it should lead to even higher kind of conversion on the upsells because they're right there. It's very easy to do, and that will be built into payment terms just sort of natively, which is an even easier sell, even easier thing to swallow. That's coming soon. And like I mentioned, so there will be automatic time adjustments after purchase for early check-ins and late checkouts. There's also going to be validation logic around timing related to tasks, to kind of preparation times, and so on, so that the upsell variance related to kind of the amount of time purchasable does not overlap and conflict with the amount of time usually taken for example, your cleaning staff to complete their turnover. There will be conditional upsells, meaning that you want to be able to set up certain upsells that are purchasable based on the number of days of the stay. That means, for example, access to something to do with the pool, and you want to pay by the day, something like that, as well as approval based. So we've heard that, and that wasn't the plans, but I just want to reiterate that we heard the feedback. The automatic timing adjustment, that's not going to be for everyone, obviously, depending on your setup. So there will be the option to make it approval based, so that when a guest purchases the upsell, first a kind of request comes to you, and you would need to do whatever you need to on your side to say, is this actually possible given our current circumstances? Maybe it's too early, too late, and so on. So you'll have the option to approve or reject that upsell. Now, we will also be able to do tax recognition and remittance the same way that we're doing that for direct premium right now, as well as payouts. So that will kind of just work seamlessly, just as you expected in direct right now. Also, what's going to happen is the ability to do cart recovery, meaning that a guest going through the upsells flow, especially in the ad hoc process, if they didn't finish checking out, we'll be able to send them an email, for example, 24 hours before afterwards, to say, hey, do you want to go back in and kind of finish purchasing this? That should help drive more revenue to you, increase the conversion rate there. We're starting with early check-in and late checkout upsells. Soon after, we're going to go into orphan nights, meaning gap nights when there's like a low chance far into the future of a booking happening just for like one night between two reservations, as well as arbitrary products, like I mentioned, sort of flowers, champagne, rental equipment, and so on. There's some kind of insurance and liability aspect to that, which is a bit harder to solve than simply just doing early check-in and late checkouts, but that stuff is also coming. So that's a lot of info, but that's kind of the summary. So what has happened in the last 2 weeks since announcing that? The intention was to kind of launch private pilot around now, but we had a slight delay on the payment flow, mostly because one of the team members critically involved in that part has been sick since Friday. Tom, hope you get better, and looking forward to your return. But yeah, we just need to finalize kind of the payment flow side of things on that side, and we'll be ready to launch the private pilot. Speaking of, we're starting with direct premium hosts only initially, because all of the infrastructure related to payments, payment terms, payouts, KYC, everything that's already set up and ready to use if you're a direct premium host. So we don't need to do anything extra. We're starting with direct premium. Soon after that, we'll roll this out to direct basic as well. And then all OTAs, meaning even guests booking on Airbnb, VRBO, and Booking.com, soon Agoda, will also be able to buy upsells in the product catalog that you set up on Hospitable. So that's upsells. If you're interested in joining the pilot, we'll have a link. Well, there's a link on the screen there. We'll also paste it in the chat. You can also email me, nick@hospitable.com. Really eager to hear your feedback. That's upsells. I'll have you just for one more minute. We rarely talk about mobile specifically. We know there are pains to do with mobile. We know, we share those pains, honestly, in many ways. I wanted to cover this a little bit. Yes, we know. We still pay attention to things that can be improved in a short amount of time. And I wanted to cover some of those recent improvements that we rolled out. There was quite a, there was an unintended kind of functionality, if you want to call it, but really a bug in the app where your account will be logged out unintentionally quite often, actually. And like I said, this is unintentional. We rolled out a fix today. If you see an app update in the App Store, in iOS specifically, on your iPhone, go ahead, download the update. That should fix it for you. You should not be getting logged out anymore. But in terms of improvements, some recent things that we've rolled out, the ability to handle external links better. So when the app would lead you somewhere else outside Hospitable, that wasn't being handled really well at all. Now it is. It will probably open the browser. The app will remain functional as it should be. Along with that, what's called universal links work now, meaning that any links leading into Hospitable that you tap on somewhere on your mobile, including in emails, now should actually be able to open up the app natively rather than having to force you into the browser. This is actually pretty big in terms of a improvement to the kind of overall experience around login flows, around kind of Airbnb authentication, all of that kind of stuff now is helped tremendously by the ability to just natively go back into the app itself. Small thing, phone numbers are now tappable. You can actually call you can actually call someone by tapping on the mobile phone within the app. Before, it just kind of didn't do anything. Another thing, it's now possible. It was kind of broken really before to be able to upload files and photos that's within messaging rules and in the inbox directly in the app itself. You don't no longer need to use your computer for that, or the mobile browser. And last but not least, slight improvement to how fast the app opens, whether fresh or from background into foreground. There was a little bit of a tweak to be made there, and I think it should be just a tiny bit snappier. We know there's a lot more to do on the app. We know that will come eventually, but at least for now, hopefully this will make for a slightly better mobile experience. Thank you.
Yes. Hello, everyone. So I wanted to give a quick update on the work that we are doing with Thermostats. So I think we announced about a month ago that we'll be working with them, and that work is now well and truly underway to allow you to connect your thermostats. You'll be able to control the temperature and the HVAC setting from the device dashboard, and then crucially let you set and manage your climate presets in Hospitable, so we can then sync those to your reservations. So the property will be comfortable and ready when the guest arrives, and it will then switch to an energy saving mode when that guest checks out to maximize those savings. We will have a private pilot coming sometime in early November, starting first with Ecobee and Honeywell thermostats. And I will communicate a date and a way to sign up in the next town hall. But in the meantime, if anyone has any comments or any suggestions, then please do email me and reach out. And that is all from me.
All right, so now for some direct updates. We have an exciting update for our direct sites. Video Heroes are now live. Last town hall, we talked about how this ranked highly on our prioritization exercise, and so the team made it happen pretty quickly. So to add a video to your site, you can go to the design tab of your hospital direct site and upload a video in the hero background video section, and that will replace any hero images that you have set up already. But if you have some cool video footage of your property, I think this really helps elevate your direct booking site. Next, another update on new payment methods. We are almost there with Apple Pay and Google Pay. This has taken us a little bit longer than we had originally anticipated, and that's just because we needed to do some refactoring of our booking flow to make this work. And given how critical the booking flow is, we want to make sure that we do pretty extensive testing to make sure that this is working before we ship it. The good news is, though, is that part of that refactoring, we get quite a few improvements to the booking flow. So there are some new UI improvements. We also have improved error handling. We've streamlined the flow, and the payment will also be part of the last screen. So less screens for the guests to progress through, and the payment form that we'll be using is a drop-in component, which will make it easier for us to add support for additional payment methods in the future. So time well spent on refactoring here. And this will be available for Direct Premium first. We expect that to be ready by the end of this week. And then we'll move on to supporting it for basic. There's just some added complexity there. But we are really close, and we'll be really excited to see this get shipped. I think it'll help significantly with conversions on direct bookings. And then our final update is a little more information on rental agreement work that we are planning. So the first thing we're going to tackle for rental agreements is making it work really well for direct. So we're going to actually, for direct premium, bring rental agreement signature collection into the guest verification flow. So it'll be more streamlined for guests. They'll complete their guest verification, and then they'll also be asked to sign any rental agreements that are scoped to their reservation. Next, we'll be moving on to collecting rental agreement signatures for all bookings, and that will be done through our guest portal. And then there's a lot of other things that we want to support here as well. So we want to allow you to scope additional agreements to reservations. For example, if a reservation requires a waiver or an equipment rental agreement, there may be a tie into upsells there in the future. You'll be able to do that. We also want to support multiple languages and then allow you to include dynamic content in your rental agreements. So you can include a dynamic or content block for example, your house rules or your booking policy. That way, if you go update your house rules or your booking policy, that would automatically update that content in rental agreements that get signed moving forward. So you don't need to go update those things and then also your rental agreement. So we'll share more on timing as we move forward, but wanted to provide some more detail on what you can expect there. And I think that's it for direct.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. All right. So since our last town hall, we've officially launched guest verification for all bookings to all of our hosts. This is something that we've had in a private pilot for quite some time, and we're at the point now where we feel comfortable and want to offer this to everybody. And so before I dive into what exactly that does, I want to talk a little bit about what the OTAs do or what the booking platforms already do in terms of guest verification. We think it's really important that you know how your guest is checked out before they get to you, before they get to an accepted reservation, so that if you feel the need to do an additional verification, you can do that and feel confident about who you're letting in your home. So here's kind of a helpful table with what everybody already does and claims to do. So One thing to point out here, so Airbnb, we know that they verify your guest. They verify the guest at the time that they sign up for Airbnb. So I know for me, I signed up for Airbnb probably 10 years ago. They verified me at that time. They give this guest verification badge, but they don't tell you exactly how they verified that particular guest. It might have been just checking their name and address. Some people are able to be verified just by that. Or they might have asked for an upload of their identification, but not always. So it's helpful to know what they do and when they do it so that you're confident or not with whether or not you need additional information. VRBO is similar. They verify guests by asking for an address and a birth date. And that's it. For Booking.com, we actually just had a meeting with them yesterday where we talked about this kind of extensively. I see Carmela in the Q&A asked, have folks been having good guests booking through them on Booking.com? That's we've heard that concern from a lot of people. There's hesitancy to connect your property with Booking.com because they don't do extensive guest verification. However, we don't want you to be afraid of that. Like Andrew shared earlier, we're seeing some hosts get 30% of their reservations through Booking.com, and some hosts even more as they're starting to pay more attention to the US market. And so we're hoping to fill that gap and help you feel comfortable no matter where these reservations come from. And so Hospitable's guest verification includes all of these things. We're going to ask for their legal name, address, birth date. They're going to upload a picture of their identification, take a selfie that we'll use to match, tell us about why they're coming, and give you the option to run a sex offender check as well. So with Hospitable's guest verification, we're very transparent about exactly what we've done. And we've done it at the time you've requested it, not years ago, so that you can get results that you feel confident in and decide whether or not you want to allow this guest to continue with their reservation, or if you're uncomfortable and want to cancel, you can actually go to the booking platform with, unbiased evidence for why you want to cancel and hopefully get any host cancellation fee waived in that process. So a little bit about how this works. In your conversation with the guest, you'll see a guest verification section there on the left, and you can request verification anytime before check-in. So this is done on already accepted reservations, regardless of where they came from. Friendly reminder that if it's a direct premium reservation, we've already done this. You don't have to worry about that. But if it's a reservation coming from any other place, you're in control. You can request verification if you want. We're covering the cost of the first one. We want you to feel the value of it before we ask for you to pay for it. So you're welcome to try this out next time you just get a funny feeling and want additional verification from a guest. Go ahead and request it. You're going to be selecting whether you want to do an identity verification and or a sex offender check. You can do one or both of those things. And when you request that, we'll be sending a message to the guest with a link to the guest portal where they can complete the information that's required of them. So you might be wondering, well, what happens before they're verified? Since the reservation is already accepted, we can't move it back to like a pending state. But what we can do is we can withhold scheduled messages from going out, messages that contain important check-in information. So the idea here is that the guest has to complete that and become verified before we're going to give them a door code, before we're going to give them the address. And so that's one way that we kind of encourage them to go through that process early on. So we'll be withholding those messages and making that very clear within the conversation with the guests why those messages are not going to be going out. On the next screen, we have some screenshots of what the guest portal looks like at this point. Abby also shared that with rental agreements, we're going to be making more features available within this guest portal. And ultimately, we want to also give the guest value within this portal as well. So that's something we're looking at. Like right now, the guest portal is just used to submit this verification information. But what might it look like if they can buy the upsells from the portal, or if they can, see additional activities in the area, maybe like a guidebook experience from within the portal. So we're also looking at not just giving you as a host value from the portal, but giving the guest value within the portal as well, so that they actually have reason to go in and submit this information, feel like they got something out of the process. Another thing to remind you of with this guest verification feature is that you still have full control. So if for any reason a guest has been flagged for review, we're going to tell you why. And you can decide, I do still want to allow them to check in because maybe I'm comfortable with them still, despite the reasons they were flagged. So you have full control. We're not going to be restricting anything permanently. It is up to you to make the decision if they are flagged for review. However, if they're verified, no action is going to be needed from you. We'll unblock those check-in messages and send them as scheduled, so you won't have to do anything else from there. So like I said, this is now available to everyone. So all primary users can do this, secondary users with full access. And if you have other secondary users who are helping with your inbox, keep up with communications, you can go in your user management and give them explicit permission to be able to purchase additional services, and then they'll be able to do this as well. One thing that we would like for you to do before you start requesting these verifications is put a little disclaimer in your listing description and let your prospective guests know that you might be requesting this. This just helps you kind of cover your bases so that if you do request this of a guest, you can always point back to your listing description and say, you know, we try to be clear that this was expected of you. And that helps as well if there's any complaints, you know, with Airbnb or with VRBO or whatever that you've done this, you can always point back to this and say, this is part of our typical process. You know, we're professional managers. This is a professional check-in experience, and this is what we're expecting our guests to do, so that you should have no problems there. So please try that out and definitely give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. Okay, let's move on to a Mogul update. Okay, so our Mogul plan has been kind of in trial for several weeks now. And I just want to share that we've heard some really, really great feedback for the last couple of weeks and months about owner statements in particular. Because of all the feedback that we received, we kind of went back heads down and we had to do some refactoring even this early on to make sure that we could support your needs. So some of the things that we've worked on and are actually mostly done and we're testing internally at this point on our own personal accounts are this. So we've checked all these boxes already. One, we heard a lot of feedback that you wanted to calculate commission before channel fees were removed or after channel fees were removed. Before, we didn't give you the flexibility to make that decision. And with this new version, we will be giving you the flexibility so that you can get really specific. Similarly, some people wanted to include other things as a part of their commission, not just accommodation and discounts. For example, some people consider pet fee to be part of how they structure their commission. And so if that's you, you'll be able to do that in this next version with a more flexible commission agreement structure. We also heard that we needed to be a little bit more specific with our terminology. Before, we bunched everything that the property manager was making under commission, but that's not actually all commission. Some is commission and some is just a pass through of the fees that are paid. So we're being specific about that and clear about that, which is going to really come into play when we get to accounting integrations and how those things are logged as well. Also, we have changed how we structure the statement. It's a lot more simple. You can read it from left to right. You can cross-check and calculate things kind of in your head just based off of the information that we're putting there. And we're going to be giving you a very detailed, granular option to download all the all the statement data in a CSV in case you need anything specific that you'd like to do there. And there's a lot more underway. So starting probably next week, those of you who are already on an owner statements trial will start to see these improvements in your account. And we're going to be reaching out to you specifically to let you know that, you know, now this is how your account is working and you can make some tweaks. If there was a setting you needed before that we didn't have, you'll be able to go in and edit those things probably starting next week. So on the next screen, I just want to show you, this is the structure we've decided on the new statement. Again, a lot simpler. It's kind of hard to read on this tiny screen, but yeah, the point is like we're being very simple and clear with this statement. So in our UI and what you can share in a PDF with the owners is going to be just like undeniably simple. And then again, if they want that more detailed information and you want to provide it to them, you can give them a CSV that literally has everything in there, really broken down. So next on the roadmap for all things Mogul plan, accounting integrations is going to be a big one. Now that we're feeling really good about the state of owner statements and allowing you to set your commissions up exactly as you want and need, accounting integrations is going to be the next thing for us, where when you publish a statement, we're also going to send all that information as journal entries to your QuickBooks account, to your Xero account, and more will come soon after that. So that's our next big focus. If you have any other feedback or ideas or just want to see what our Mogul plan roadmap is looking like, you can scan that QR code and add your comments to the things we're already working on so we can make sure that you're going to be supported in this next version. Also, Brian, who was kind of reintroduced last week, he's been on our team for years now, but he is your guy. If you're interested in mogul or in owner statements and want to do a trial and play around with it, see what it's like, you can scan that QR code to set a meeting with him, and he'll get you all set up. That's all I got for today.
Cool. Thank you very much, Emily. So we're gonna speed through these last couple of slides, get to some Q&A, but if there's any additional feedback you'd like to share with us, you can obviously let us know in the Q&A section, but you can also head to feedback.hospitable.com and upvote any suggestions there, or add your own feature suggestions for things that we should be working on. And then finally, just a call out for our next town hall. I'll be happening in 2 weeks' time, October 30th, on Zoom as usual. If you'd like to scan that QR code, you can add it to your calendar now so that you don't miss it. We'll, of course, be sending out email notifications and app pushes about that as well. But in case you don't want to miss it, make sure you scan that now. Okay, I think that's it for our slides. So I'm going to move over to the Q&A. So as always, you can go down to the react button to raise your hand, but we already have a couple of people with their hands raised. So I'm going to welcome Caleb on stage. Hello, Caleb. Hi there, Caleb. Seems like you're still muted. I'm going to give you a second, and maybe it's a accidental hand raise.
Hi, sorry about that. I did not realize my hand was raised. I don't have a question.
No worries. Thank you very much, Caleb. Thanks for the heads up.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay. So we're going to try Sean. Hopefully Sean has a question. Hello, Sean.
Hello, Sean.
Good morning.
Great. Okay, are you driving?
No, I'm not driving.
Okay, I thought there was some noise in the beginning. Okay, how can we help you today?
Around the guest verification, primarily my customers are coming from booking.com, and guest verification, obviously booking.com does their reservation slightly differently. There are a few things around that, and maybe either you or maybe other guests have experienced some of this, may be able to help understand these things a little bit. When I reached out to booking.com, literally just copy pasted that paragraph, wanting to put it in the fine print so the guest would know ahead of time that the guest verification will be performed. They outright denied putting that fine print. They said maybe I can send a message or something to the guest. Now in Galveston, Texas, just when I asked, we have a Lone Star Rally coming up. It's a big event in November. A lot of crazy things happens in the Lone Star Rally. I asked for ID and the guest just flat out went berserk and said that the guest will report me to the ID theft, will create an investigation for asking for a government valid ID. They will call Airbnb and booking.com and all the other OTAs to make sure I never get any booking again. And if you don't know this, a host cannot cancel a reservation. So what host can do is go up on their portal and basically lie that the guest has requested the cancellation. Then the guest has to actually proceed with that cancellation. I think that's a default generic setup that booking.com has. So some of the information we went over on earlier on the guest verification, where you can withhold the check-in code, check-in information, these guests traveling far. It's very unlikely that during the Lone Star Rally they're going to find anything less than $1,500. And booking.com policy is if they have to accommodate guests to stay in another hotel or another vacation rental, then the host that rejected that reservation will pay the difference. I think the guest verification is a great idea. It kind of, separates all the folks, but there's a lot of other unanswered questions around the guest verification. the two options that you say you can withhold check-in information, it'll be a riot. In Texas, people pull out, everybody carries a weapon, and it won't go very well. Let's just say it that way.
Okay, Sean, can I jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you should be able to cancel from within booking.com. I'm not sure exactly how that's working. But yeah, from what we find is helpful is, a guest refusing to do guest verification is something that you can use in your defense against booking.com. And if that is ever unsuccessful, please let us know. And we have a lot of contacts in Booking. They're aware of what this is, and we can help you escalate that case. I'm happy to do that. We talked a lot with them about the pain that this causes our host. They are interested in fixing it. And yeah, I think it's going to take them a while, like all things do. But hopefully there's some progress there. One of the things I think we've found helpful on the direct side is helping the guest just compare this to a hotel experience. What happens when you check into a hotel? You must give an ID. You must give the credit card you made to do the booking, right? This is a different experience with a short-term rental. There's no front desk. There's no check-in process. But what you're asking is not out of the ordinary. It might not help with all guests. This one seems a little bit on the edge case, hopefully. Maybe someone you hopefully would have rejected it if you had seen it in direct premium and been able to view this before accepting the booking. But that we do find that helpful, right? It's no different than what a hotel is asking for. I think we probably take data protection a lot more seriously than a lot of hotel chains have in the past. I think Marriott just had a huge settlement for data protections that they've had in the past. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a struggle for some guests. And please, I'm happy to escalate that within booking.com if you feel like you were treated unfairly with guest verification. I'd love to escalate that to them. I'll drop my email in the chat and you can forward that to me.
I would add just two thoughts to that is basically on the fine print. I would be very curious as to what you wanted to add on your listing instructions or listing details. Because definitely once a reservation has been accepted on Booking, you cannot decline, you cannot refuse or reject or cancel that reservation based on the fact that you don't have the thing. That's basically a clear answer that many OTAs would have. You cannot just do that. So based on non-completion of a thing, but you may not feel comfortable hosting that person. So I think, Sean, based on your experience, I think you expressed the fear for your safety about the fact that the guest went berserk, and it seems that basically just the location in Texas is sufficient to express a threat. I'm sorry, I'm the one European and French on top of it on the call, so that's really not fair on anyone. So I probably should be afraid for my own personal safety after saying that comment. But it seems like basically that kind of bars that customer, that guest from being hosted at your place. As for the comment on the ID theft, that's a comment that came up also in the chat, so I want to say it out loud. You are not storing the ID document. A third party is owning that, and they basically are making sure, and they audited and have penetration testing to basically make sure that they are storing this information very securely. And that's explicitly so that you don't get a claim like that on holding ID that could then be disseminated outside of the internet of the initial purpose.
Cool. Thank you very much for sharing your concerns, Sean. And Andrew has dropped his email in the chat, so please do reach out to him there. Okay, moving on to our next question. We have Q. Hello, Q.
Hello, Q.
Hi guys, this is Quentin with Lux Enclaves. I actually got a phone call right at the tail end of that explanation around guest verification, which I was incredibly interested to hear. So I'm glad I got off before you guys turned to me. But anyhow, I definitely am curious on how that'll interplay with like cancellation policies with the platform. But I'll skip forward to some of my other questions. So the other is, as it relates to adding a direct booking, you all recently made some improvements to that flow that allowed you to kind of see the price first before you have to add guest information. I thought that was extremely helpful. So just a comment there. One suggestion, however, and if I'm missing this, please let me know. The figures don't tell you the exact amount the host is going to receive. Right. So you have like the accommodation amount, and you can add in like, it automatically inputs the fees, and you can also add in discounts. And then, of course, the taxes and service fee is calculated at the bottom. But without doing your own math in your head, you can't really tell what would actually come to you as the host. And that could be inclusive of, again, accommodation, fees minus discounts. And if you're in an area where the taxes, you're responsible for the taxes, that would also come to you. So in a nutshell, I'm wondering if a line item can be added that would quickly do that math for you to help speed up that decision making around ultimately, what you will want to charge the guests. So that's my first question.
Sure. Feedback received. You just want like a subtotal for your payout within you're talking about the custom quote flow for direct booking. So yeah, I think we'll note that and see what we can do.
Okay, sounds good. I really appreciate it. The other is, once you add that direct booking, is there a way where you can, within your messaging rules, distinguish the automated message that's sent to the guests when a direct booking is added by the host versus when it's generated by the guest going through your normal Google search or flow on our website? And the reason I ask is because I have a generic email that essentially indicates, hey, we received your request and just give us a moment, we'll review it, et cetera, right? Nice message there. But it really doesn't make sense if I'm kind of talking to the guest and telling them, hey, I'm going to add this, and they receive an email saying, hey, I'm reviewing it. It's kind of counterintuitive to them. And I think if there's a way to, like, whether that's a custom code or some kind of configuration within the message to distinguish which one goes out in each scenario, I think that'll be helpful. So that's my second question. Thoughts on that?
Sorry, which messaging rule are you talking about? It's not the booking confirmation email. Which messaging rule are you using?
So I believe it's the message rule that goes out when there's a like an inquiry. So it's not an accepted booking, but it does trigger when I add the direct booking. But before the guest goes in and enters their credit card and completes the verification flow, it's that initial email. I forget the actual criteria, whatnot it's called in the messaging rules.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if we were aware we were sending the inquiry message for creating a custom quote. That might be something we have to check on. But yeah, I don't think that was the intended behavior. For direct, we're handling actually like sharing that link for the custom quote. I don't think you need to have that scoped for direct. So one quick fix I think would just be to remove that messaging rule for direct. We're gonna cover the messaging on that. And yeah, we'll investigate why we're sending the inquiry message for the creation of a custom quote. That's not something I think we intended to do.
Got it. Okay, and just one
Very
last
quick.
item. Yeah.
Very
Sorry,
quick,
this ties back to the additional guest verification. You guys recommended some disclaimer information to add to the listing. Is that something that you guys can provide to us that we can include?
Yeah, I'll drop a link to our help article that has that recommended language in the chat. And also Derek, about 4 messages up from the chat, shared what he has used in his own listing and has been successful. So I'll drop that in the chat right now before we close this out.
Splendid. All right, well, that's all I had. Thanks for listening to my questions.
Thank you very much for your questions. Cool. I think we might have to end it there, unfortunately. We are a couple of minutes over and we have a conference hall to get back to, quite a bunch of us. I think Emily's furiously typing and sharing that link in the chat now. Then
I'll just share it with you later. I'll find it. I'll email it to you.
Okay. Don't know if there's any closing words from you, PC, before we end this.
Have a great day on the floor of VRMA. I hope you're gonna have plenty of visits. Maybe a few. I mean, you guys. So you are all in the same Airbnb. Unfortunately, I couldn't show up this year on VRMA. I'm gonna insist on saying VRMA. There's a debate internally on whether it's VRMA or VRBO or VRMA or VRBO. But just, yeah. So how is the decoration at your Airbnb? Or is your place?
Yeah. The same across Phoenix shops and rentals. I think they've all gone for a similar design theme.
the same design across Arizona. Okay, have a great day, everyone. I wish I would be with you, and I wish I would be on the floor and talking to customers. That's obviously a great source of joy. Have a great day, and see you in